Hi again, and welcome to Huddle's YouTube channel. And this is another day, another topic. And as I mentioned last time, we continue with the psychological manipulation theme. But before we kick off, I hope you have been keeping well, and I hope our video on gaslighting was useful to you, and hope you had a chance to go through our longer form article on the same topic. As I said before, do leave us constructive feedback so that we can continue to improve our content. So let's continue the topic, continue with the same theme. And in the theme, today we are going to talk about an interesting new manipulative technique that manipulators use against us. It is a technique called love bombing. I know it sounds funny, perhaps, and maybe you are familiar with the concept. Maybe some of you are unfamiliar with the concept. But nevertheless, this video is about bringing about greater awareness about the topic and about the tactic. So, what is love bombing? So, let's begin with the definition before we consider, like last time, some of the other important points around the topic. So, let's begin with the definition. Love bombing is basically another form of manipulative technique where the bomber, we can call him the bomber or the manipulator, uses excessive forms of affection, attention, gifting to kind of influence your behavior, to get your buy in, to manipulate you at the end of the day. That's what love bombing is all about. And in the initial stages, it might feel like you're on the top of the world. You might feel like you're involved in a whirlwind romance. But beneath it, there is manipulation and not necessarily affection and love. There is a caveat, of course. Not all early intense emotions and early intense affection is manipulative. The intent is what makes the difference. Where there is a manipulative intent, it is a form of manipulative and psychological manipulation. Where the intent is genuine affection, then definitely it's different from being manipulated. But the definition of love bombing is excessive forms of affection and attention and showering of gifts on you to get your buy-in or to influence your behavior and to control you in some way or the other. So that's what love bombing is all about. Let's look at, as always, some examples to kind of drive home the point. We can look at a relationship. Maybe you're going out on your second date. Hope it is the second date, hope it's not the first one. On a second date itself, your partner declares deep sense of affection and connection with you and says things like, I've never felt like this before, you are so special, and things of that sort. There is great showering of affection on you. And this is a good example of how love bombing initially, drops on you, right? In a relationship where there is excessive affection thrown at you. It can be very flattering in the beginning, but it can soon become overwhelming because over a period of time, or maybe even immediately, not over a period of time, immediately there is a lot of contact. The person starts texting you every day, the person wants to meet you every day. There are various things that the bomber gets about doing, and soon it can all feel rather overwhelming. Right? That's one example of love bombing. Let's take another example. In a friendship, you have a new friend. Maybe you just joined a new college and you met some people and you've never seen them before, and you're slowly getting to build friendships. So they're kind of nascent. They are your new friends. But suddenly, this new friend says, "You are my best friend. You are my bestie." He or she declares that you are their best friend. And then starts to follow you everywhere, cannot be without you, starts becoming possessive about you. All of these things can happen even within friendships. That's another example of an explosion or a dropping of an affectionate bomb, so to speak. Right? Let's look at another example. In the workplace, yes, this can happen in your offices too, not perhaps in the classical romantic or romance way, but your boss might shower compliments at your work, will give you lots of praise about the way you work, all probably with the intent to manipulate you somehow later on. Maybe to get you to start doing some overtime work, or maybe to tolerate some kind of inappropriate behavior down the line. You just don't know. But this can happen at workplace as well. So you see, love bombing can happen in so many different scenarios in all kinds of relationships. So it is kind of all pervasive. Wherever there is human connection and wherever there are human relationships, there can be love bombing, where manipulation happens through excessive deliverance of affection. So that is to give you an idea of a few examples of how pervasive love bombing is. Let's look at what techniques a bomber deploys in manipulating you, how it exactly works. There are three stages to love bombing. Stage number one is the idealization stage. Stage number two is the devaluation stage. And stage number three is the control stage. So let's take them one by one. Stage number one, idealization stage, that's the stage where everything is hunky dory. There is a great showering of greetings and gifts and affection. Everything is ideal. You know, the world is painted so rosy, and you get drawn in into their relationship of the bomber. Your guard is brought down because it feels so wonderful to be shown so much affection, and it feels wonderful to be given so much attention to you. So this is why it's called the idealization phase. It's kind of like an utopia, right? You are living in a kind of dream world where the bomber gives you so much love and affection that it's incredible. It feels fantastic to you, and then you fall head over heels into the bomber's net, so to speak. So that's the first stage of love bombing. The second stage is the devaluation stage, or what I would like to call the activation of dependence stage. What happens here? This is a stage where the love bomber knowingly starts to withdraw his or her affection, which he had showered upon you initially. So initially it was, "Oh my darling, you are the best thing since sliced bread. I love you so much. You are the soulmate," etc., etc. And then slowly they start withdrawing from you. They don't start showing that same level of affection. That leaves you completely confused. And that leaves you craving for more, the kind of love and the kind of affection and attention that they were giving you. You start craving for it because it's now being taken away from you. That's a way for them to kind of create dependency for you on them, right? That's the second stage. And the final stage is the closure where they get absolute and complete control over you. They've withdrawn their affection towards you, and now you are well within their control, whether it is for um, holding power over you in a relationship, or whether it is for some kind of exploitation, such as financial exploitation, or keeping you isolated, or whatever it may be. In the control phase, they are basically able to control you like you are essentially their puppet. So, this is how love bombing tends to work. These are the techniques that the bomber typically deploys. Now, what are the symptoms and signs to look out for? Um, Love bombing sounds like a very explosive thing, but there are subtle cues that are sent out, and sometimes there are not very subtle cues that are sent out. And here are some things that you can always watch out for. First of all, excessive affection. Excessive affection very early on in your relationship with the individual is something to really watch out for. There is a universal, immediate declaration of love and affection, and that can be a bit overwhelming for everyone. So, watch out whenever you're in a situation where there is an excessive form of affection and attention being thrown at you very early on in a relationship. Keep a guard instead of falling head over heels and falling perhaps into a love bombing trap. But again, caveat, like I mentioned before, not all intense early affection need to be manipulative, but it's always good to know that this happens in the real world. And if there is excessive affection being thrown at you, it's always good to have a little bit of skepticism, take a little bit of backward step to evaluate the situation in reality. So that's the first thing to take note of. The second sign to be really conscious about is OTT gestures. No, I'm not talking about Netflix or Prime Video. By OTT, I mean really over the top gestures. Very expensive gifts being given to you, expensive dinner dates, grand gestures. It's really everything is over the top, and you should be watchful for such gestures, because that is, one of the telltale signs of love bombing in action. Right. So OTT gestures is something to watch out for. Another interesting symptom to watch out for is isolation attempts. Love bombers very early on start to kind of want you to be theirs only. They'll start saying things like, be with me. They'll start to try and take you away from your friends, try and take you away from your support system, try and move you away from your family so that they can hold you all to themselves. They'll try to isolate you, right? Only to control you more easily. So watch out if there are moves in such directions. So that's also another telltale sign of love bombing, isolation attempts. Then, need for constant validation. Now, they are showering constant affection and attention on you, and they start expecting the same from you too. So they expect you to offer the same level of attention and affection. And if you don't, they usually tend to get very, very upset. So that's another sign to watch out for. If there is somebody who is throwing a lot of affection at you and you are not returning it in equal amounts, and they are getting irritated and annoyed with it and angry with it, then take a step back and evaluate your situation. That's an important symptom to watch out for. And finally, the emotional roller coaster. So, this whole affection, withdrawal, control, All of this creates that dependency, and with that comes emotional turmoil. And if you're going through emotional roller coaster in a relationship in this fashion, then that's another telltale sign that there may be love bombing going on, and that you will probably need to take a step back to evaluate your relationship. So if any of these things are familiar to you or seems to be happening in your life, then please do evaluate your situation as critically and with as much open mind as possible, because that is important. That is the way you're going to break free from the cycle of manipulation. Now that you know some signs and symptoms, let's again fundamentally look at why do people do this. Not very different from gaslighting. Again, the need for control and power. Love bombing is another way to control you. Love bombing is another way to exercise power over you. By bringing you under their control, they can probably financially exploit you, they can keep you isolated. There are many ways that they can improve their own lives at the expense of yours. So control and power is one obvious reason for it. Secondly, insecurity. Love bombers tend to be very insecure people. By keeping you dependent on them, they again try and solve their own insecure feelings and their own sense of insecurity by having you being dependent on them, so that they feel that they are never going to be abandoned. So, to help their own sense of insecurity, they exercise love bombing. They use this as a technique to get you to become dependent on them. Narcissism is yet again another driving factor. People with narcissistic personality traits love to destroy other people's self confidence, and through love bombing, they maintain their dominance over you. So, love bombing is another very effective tool to maintain dominance over you and over others. And like I said, another fundamental reason why many a times there is love bombing is to kind of sometimes financial exploitation. There have been many cases where people enter into relationships in a whirlwind romance, and within no time there is a sense of exploitation going on, especially financial exploitation. So it is very important to guard yourself, not to let your guard low too early. And if any of these things seem to be happening in your life, take a step back and evaluate your relationships as critically as possible. But these are some of the main drivers for people to do love bombing. So, what can you do about it? How can you protect yourself? Well, first of all, take your time. Genuine relationships take time to build, they are not rushed. They are based on trust and integrity, and that takes time to build. So take your time. There is no rush. There is no need to rush into relationship building. And if your opposite, your partner, is rushing into the relationship with grandiose statements and over the top gestures, then take a step back and communicate very clearly that you don't wish to take it so fast and that you'd like to take your own time with the relationship. So, point number one is take your time. Set very clear boundaries. It is very, very important for you to have an assertive and proper communication style, to set very clear boundaries so that you are not entrapped within the love bomber's net. So that's very, very important. Thirdly, stay connected to your support system, because remember, the love bomber is trying to isolate you. He or she is trying to isolate you from your friends, from your family, so that you can be exploited to the maximum extent. In order to prevent this from happening, please remain connected with your friends, with your family, so that they can give you not only space, they can give you objective analysis about what is happening, they can give you a critical perspective on what is happening, an external perspective on what's happening, which may offer you some clarity, much needed clarity on the relationship. So, very, very important to stay connected to your support system. Trust your instincts. Like I said before in the previous video, don't dismiss your feelings. If you feel something is off, don't dismiss it prematurely. If you feel that you're being taken for a ride, don't dismiss it. Take action. If you feel that this is going way too fast, if you feel that this is inappropriate, if you feel that all these expensive gifts and over the top gestures are inappropriate, speak up. It is important that you speak up and set boundaries and make it very, very clear that you wish to take it in your own space, in your own speed, in your own time. So, get a sense of your own feeling and trust your instincts. And finally, if you are struggling with the whole situation and if you don't know what to exactly do and how to process your emotions, then certainly seek external help and professional help. They will probably, therapists will help you process the emotion more properly and help you see the situation with greater clarity. So, these are some essential ways that you can protect yourself. So, set boundaries very, very clearly. Be assertive in your communication. Say that you need time with your family and friends. They are important to you. They cannot be sacrificed. So, stay connected to your support system as well. So, that way you can maintain your sense of reality and not fall into the trap that the love bomber is kind of planning to set for you or is trying to set for you. Now, finally, the last part of the last segment is essentially if you know anyone in your family or you know any friends who are being love bombed, then what should you do? Again, not much difference from the previous video on gaslighting. Please, if you are trying to help someone, make sure that you listen without judgment. That is very, very important. Point out red flags in a very gentle way, because remember, your friend or your family member might be in this whirlwind romance kind of feeling. So, you being judgmental about their partner might not come across as something very tasteful. In fact, it might be rather distasteful because the hormones are running pretty high and wild. So, if you, from an external perspective, you are able to see some red flags, point them out, certainly, but point them out gently as well, so that your friend or your family member can see it with a critical eye. So that's very, very important. Encourage boundaries. As I mentioned before, boundary setting is important. If boundary setting is not happening, please encourage them to set very healthy boundaries. Please encourage them to have open, assertive communication with their partners who are trying to love bomb them. And finally, if none of these things are working, please encourage your friends and family members to take or to seek professional help to help process the emotions and the turmoil or lessen the suffering. So, these are things that you can do to help others who are already suffering from love bombing. So, that's this video about this manipulative technique called love bombing. So, you've heard about it. It is essentially a manipulative technique that the love bomber or the manipulator uses to thwart, to get control over you by showering excessive amounts of affection and attention and gifts to influence your behavior so that they can achieve their own means, their own goals through you. That is essentially what love bombing is. There are lots of telltale signs of it: excessive affection, over the top gestures. These are things that you can watch out for when they are trying to isolate you, when they are trying to take you away from your support system. These are all telltale signs of love bombing happening. So watch out for these things. And finally, to protect yourself, set clear boundaries, take your time with the relationship, seek professional help if you need, stay connected with your support system, and draw clear boundaries and communicate as assertively as possible. Say that other people are important in your life. You need time, you need space with your family members and friends. You need to say that very, very clearly. These are some ways that you can protect yourself. And as far as others are concerned, be less judgmental and offer help, not solutions, and encourage them to set boundaries, encourage them to seek professional help if that is required. So that is all about love bombing. Hope this video has been useful to you. As before, this video will be supported by a long form article on our website, on our blog website, huddlepsychology.substack.com. The blog article will be supported by suggested reading and references. If you wish to take a deeper dive and learn more about this manipulative technique, if you want to learn more about the subject, go to our blog and you'll be able to read the article and the references, so that you are better versed, you're better literate about this form of manipulation. And if you liked this video, please, as always, like it and share it as wide as possible, so that we can make people, as many people, aware about this manipulative technique and help them unshackle themselves from the cycle of manipulation, psychological manipulation. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and give us constructive feedback on our content. We always welcome that, so that we can keep improving. So that's it for this time. This is all about love bombing. Hope you had a useful session with us, and hope to see you again next time. And until the next video, please keep flourishing. Bye bye.